the best DC universe ever to be put on screen, so across the gaming, TV shows, movies, etc. Now I'm not gonna count the ones that only center around like one character, so like I'm not gonna count the Batman Arkham series because like it's really just Batman, more so universes across media that like put a broader emphasis on the DC universe as a whole, so like you see other characters besides like Batman or whatever. So you know, we'll see on here, you know, DCEU, DCAMU, DCAU, etc. And I think we all probably know what number one is or what number one should be, but we'll just go down the list either way. So I'm gonna do seven-ish. Yeah, that sounds about good. These are the most prominent across media. I'm probably forgetting a couple, but the ones that I'm listing are the most prevalent across the decades that they've been around. They're the most impactful to the DC universe as a whole. Coming in at number 7, the worst DC universe put to screen, and I think this really shouldn't be debated as to why it's the worst, is the DC extended universe, the DCEU, remnants of the Snyderverse, whatever you want to call it. I have never seen a more disjointed, messy of a universe. Like we all know why the DCU just sucks. Like, just for the overall lack of planning, the constant shifting of leadership, creatives, writers, directors, multiple projects, production hell for Justice League, The Flash, a bunch of DC slates, movies, TV shows getting canceled, actors coming and going and then coming back and then leaving again, and then just it ended up getting rebooted. It was so bad it rebooted. Like that, wow. After his 10-year run. And not to mention, just more than half of the projects just suck. Like the beginning sucked and the ending sucks, okay? Like, it's just awful adaptations of DC characters. It's like you wonder why this universe failed, as, you know, they try to push some of the more side characters or characters that are lesser known, like Shazam, Blue Beetle, and whatnot. But what they fail to realize is that if you can't even get your main players right, i.e. Batman and Superman, why would you expect general audiences to care about the more side characters, like the C-D-list characters? The reason why, for example, the Guardians of the Galaxy worked, even though they weren't that well known, due to the fact that they were able to get the A-listers right, like the Avengers, people were pulling up to the Guardians and be like, oh, what's this about? And they're like, oh, okay, they got that right, so, you know, this intrigues us, you can see what this is about. But with DC, it's like, no, bro, you can't even do Superman right. Like, Ben Affleck left, like, back in, like, 2018, rather. Bro never got a solo movie. Henry Cavill never got a Man of Steel 2. I've made countless videos on the DCEU. We all know why it's trash. This is just god-awful. It's awful. At number 6, we're gonna go with the CW Arrowverse. Now, initially, the CW Arrowverse actually was kind of solid, like of a lot of the shows, like Supergirl initially wasn't even in the Arrowverse. Even she had a crossover with the Flash, but she wasn't a part of that like universe until like much later. But the first couple of seasons for a lot of these shows, Flash, Arrow, Supergirl, were all right. You know, I think people overrate the first couple seasons of The Flash. I think there's still a lot of issues with that, but it's a lot better than what we got later on. You had a lot of intimidating villains like, you know, Zoom, Deathstroke from season 2 of Arrow, probably one of my favorite seasons in the entire Arrowverse. Like, Arrow is probably like my favorite show. I think that one's had the most like consistency in terms of quality, and some of the seasons in that show were really spot on. The only really big issue is that it's trying to be Batman so badly. This dude is like a brooding vigilante type character. Bro has a whole bat family. Bro has a girl in the chair. Like, bro uses some of Batman's rogues gallery, like the Ra's al Ghul in the League of Assassins. Like, it's insane. And then obviously the Flash, Arrow spawned into other projects like Legends of Tomorrow, Batwoman, Black Lightning. I'm not even gonna try to remember all of them. That might be all of them. But we all know that there was just a sharp decline in quality with a lot of these shows. Like, I want to say around Crisis on Infinite Earths is where you know, started to see the dog writing just seeping way into the main shows. Like, I'm telling you, shows like The Flash and Arrow, like everybody was tuning in, like normies, comic book fans, like, bro, seasons 1 and 2 in The Flash, bro, everybody and their mama was watching that joint. Hey, you watched a new episode of The Flash? Oh my god, you know who Savitar was? Bro, finding out who Savitar was, like, I remember being on the internet, it was like 2016, like finding out Savitar was just like such a big talk, like, who's this Savitar? Is it Future Barry? Is it this dude? Is it that? But now it's like any talk of The Flash before it ended for season 9, it's just like how terrible it is with like the awful VFX and just dog writing. However, despite the quality of some of the later seasons of these shows, or just entire shows in general, like Batwoman just being garbage, it is better than the DCEU in my opinion in terms of connectivity, because connectivity was a major problem with the DCEU. Like, its continuity was all over the place. Its major players were really not present throughout that much. Like, look at the total screen time of Ben Affleck's Batman in particular and Henry Cavill's Superman in the DCEU. Like, it is way too short in comparison if they should have had in that universe. The main players of the Arrowverse were pretty consistent, and they actually had arcs that followed through up until Crisis on Infinite Earths, like Oliver Queen, for example. And they had a lot of decent crossovers up until then, you know, with like Crisis on Earth X, or just some of the more smaller Flash and Arrow crossovers that they had. And they actually went out of their way to connect to even further DC projects, like connecting to like the DCEU multiverse, or Titans, Doom Patrol, maybe some of the Burtonverse stuff. You saw Kevin Conroy as a live action Bruce Wayne for the first time. And the funny thing is that both the Arrowverse and the DCEU started and ended around the same time, with 2012 being the beginning of the Arrow show and 2013 being the beginning of Man of Steel, and then the DCEU ending with, I guess, Aquaman 2, and the Arrowverse ending in 2023 with the Flash TV show. And because Superman and Lois ends next year in 2024, but it's not really in that same Earth anymore, because they confirmed that in Superman and Lois, Superman is the only hero in that universe. But anyway, coming in at number 5. Now, this one might be a little unfair due to how more recent it is in comparison to the other universes, but for right now, I'm gonna put the Tomorrowverse at number 5, which is the new DC animated movie universe after the DCAMU, which was like the more New 52 inspired universe that started with Flashpoint and ended with Justice League Dark Apokolips War. So this is the universe after that, which starts with Superman, Man of Tomorrow, and as of the time of this recording, the most recent movie being Justice League Warworld. I made a video a while back kind of going over what this universe is about and the movies in it and how it connects. You know, you can go check that out right here. And with this one, like I said, it is more recent. It's only like, what, 7-ish movies in, and half of them are like solid, you know, like Superman, Man of Tomorrow, so decent origin story type movie. The Batman Long Halloween 2-parter is really good, best part of the series, no surprise, it's the Batman movie. But then you have some of the other projects like Justice Society World War II, which is another solid entry. But then some of the more mid ones like Legion of Superheroes, Green Lantern Be With My Power, I'm not a fan of that one. And the most recent film, Justice League Warworld, is just a really weird movie. Again, I made another video going over Justice League Warworld in particular and why that movie doesn't really work, and specifically how this universe is already doing a Crisis on Infinite Earths 7 movies in. Like, we haven't even gotten a proper Justice League movie yet. It's titled Justice League Warworld, but the only players in it are Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman. It's a Trinity movie. I don't know why it's called Justice League, but I digress. We haven't really delved deep into this universe yet. We don't know too much about it outside of like some of its few key players, and they're already doing a Crisis on Infinite Earths. Like, are they rebooting already? Because if so, then pretty short-lived universe. But I think they said they would continue doing movies afterward, but we'll see if that plays through, since James Gunn's doing the whole interconnected DCU across television, animation, live action, gaming, etc. And the Tomorrowverse kind of skipped over some major aspects of the DC universe that I was hoping to see more of, that they kind of just either brushed off or deleted entirely. Hal Jordan, for example, they killed him off and made a Parallax in the first Green Lantern movie. The Green Lantern Corps is kind of, not, I don't want to say non-existent, but like a lot of major players died in Green Lantern Be With My Power. They skipped over the formation of the Justice League, so we don't even know who like the main roster is right now, and a lot of key players and how that'll tie in with Crisis on Infinite Earths is kind of unknown. For example, Wonder Woman doesn't even have a movie yet. You know, I want to see other DC characters that we might have not seen in the DCAMU, but it is what it is. Coming in at number 4. Now, this one's just a TV show, but I think just due to its cultural significance and the fact that it does put emphasis on the DC universe as a whole, I think it justifies being on this list, is being the Young Justice at number 4, the Young Justice universe, if you want to call it. Now, some of you probably would be a little, I don't want to say upset, but probably disagree, thinking it might be a little higher, you know, closer to like the top 2 or the top, because it is DC animation. But the reason why I put it at number 4 mainly is due to the fact that some of the later seasons aren't really as good as the first 2 seasons of Young Justice, like before it got canceled when it was still airing on Cartoon Network. I feel like there was kind of a decline in quality in its storytelling, and more specifically the pacing. The pacing, I think, was a really big problem in seasons 3 and 4, and how much they focused on characters we didn't care about. Because like when it came to Young Justice season 2, you know, after its really long hiatus of being canceled, when fans were, you know, clamoring for them to bring it back, and it finally was brought back, they were expecting to see more of the characters that were introduced in season 2. Because the big problem with Young Justice is that the show introduces a lot of characters, and a lot of them don't get the attention they deserve. They get pushed to the side. A lot of the season 2 cast that was introduced, like Cassie Sandsmark Wonder Girl, Tim Drake Robin, Static Shock Blue Beetle, they're like very, or they don't really have a role in season 3 up until the second half. And like season 3 kind of has a tug of war of like, okay, we're focusing on these new characters that no one asked for, like Halo, Forager, and you know, what was his name, Breon, Geoforce. But it's like, we didn't come here for that. We came here to see Nightwing, we came here to see Aqualad, you know, the characters that we grew up with. And then the second half of the season that actually does focus on characters we want to see, like Tim Drake, you know, Beast Boy and all that. It's not until the second half. And then with season 4, it kind of has like mini arcs that like focus on some of the original cast members, like Miss Martian. You have this interesting arc with like Beast Boy going through depression. But then season 4, you know, there's like a severe lack of like Nightwing. It's like, you know, what's up with that? I just think like the first 2 seasons are like, if Young Justice was just those first two seasons, then it'd probably be like number 2, close to even number 1, or like just peak DC or close to it, on top of course, we all know which ones are going to be number 1. Because you saw what the wider DC universe is like with like the Justice League, but also with the younger characters like with Dick Grayson and Wally West. I'm sad they didn't bring him back, man. I really thought they were going to bring him back, but bro, they actually stayed dead. I'm pissed. And I just feel like the show overall like tries to introduce like too many plot points and elements while also trying to go back on the old plot points that they've set up, like what's going on with like Darkseid in the end, and then you bring in whatever's going on with like the Kryptonians and General Zod and all that. So I just think they needed to do a better job of, you know, pulling it all together and further establishing the DC universe characters that should have gotten the spotlight in season 3 instead of introducing new ones that really no one cares for. Coming in at number 3, I'm gonna put the Injustice universe, or, you know, that universe that centers around like the prequel comics leading up to like the first 2 games. And I'm not gonna count the animated movie that come out, as it I haven't even seen it yet, but I've heard it's bad, as it tries to cram the plot points of the prequel comics and the story game for the Justice Gods Among Us, which I'm not even sure how that works. Try to cram that to like an hour 18-ish minute runtime. That just sounds like a mess, because when I first heard they were making a Injustice animated movie, I'm like, is it just gonna be the game? Like, they should have just made an animated TV show based off the prequel comics, and then you could expand storylines there that, you know, could be cool to see in like a type of medium, whether it be animation or whatever. Biggest missed opportunity, WB. Hey, there's still time, bro. Get on that. But yeah, I think just due to the fact that the prequel comics is what really makes this a little higher on the list of how it expands the universe as a whole, and, you know, it asks a lot of, or answers a lot of questions. However, there are some stupid things that happen in this universe, like the whole Nightwing death. It's probably one of the dumbest things that come out of this universe entirely. I hate it so much. Like, why would you do that? And the first 2 Justice game storylines are pretty solid anyway, so, you know, I think that's what kind of gives it the edge there over, like, say, like Young Justice or whatever. Because like I said, you know, first 2 seasons are really good, later half is not so much. But with the Injustice universe, hopefully there's an Injustice 3. I was kind of hoping there would be an Injustice 3 after MK11, but we got MK1 instead, which, you know, is fine, but, you know, WBM still win for Injustice 3, please. Coming in at number 2, runner-up, we got the DCAMU, the DC Animated Movie Universe. So this is the one that focuses on the more New 52 inspired universe. Starts with Justice League Flashpoint Paradox and ends with Justice League Dark Apokolips War. You know, some of the proxies include, you know, Death of Superman, Reign of Superman, Son of Batman, all that. And this universe has, you know, specifically with characters like Batman, puts an emphasis on the Bat family, but not the comic accurate Bat family, I want to speak, because they skipped over Jason Todd and Tim Drake entirely. I don't know why. They just don't exist. They don't exist in this universe. They just went from Dick straight to Damian. It still irks me to this day. And I think the interconnectivity of this universe is what works best. You know, how certain projects connect to the other, they'll make references to other projects, and how it all leads together, like, you know, how it all culminated in Justice League Dark Apokolips War. However, I'm pretty sure Justice League Dark Apokolips War wasn't intended to be the end of that universe, as there were a couple of movies that came out before, like a Wonder Woman movie, Wonder Woman Bloodlines, that set up stuff for future Wonder Woman, but literally it came out right before Apokolips War, and Apokolips War ended the whole universe. So, and some of the few gripes I have with this universe is, like, I think there's a less emphasis on some of the other DC characters. There's a lot of emphasis on Batman, and it's like, hey, Batman's my number 1 guy. He's just that guy, like, you know what I'm saying? But even I can admit that there's a lot of Batman in this universe. Like, bro's like the main player in Justice League Dark for some reason. It's like, isn't the whole thing supposed to be magical? Why is Batman here?
How you doing, Johnny boy? Zatanna and Batman? What the hell?
Bro has 4 movies. Superman only had like 2, or I guess technically like a 2-parter of 1 movie with the death and reign of Superman. Wonder Woman only got 1 movie. Green Lantern got none. There's a severe lack of Green Lantern in this universe. He plays a role in the first couple of Justice League movies, but after that, it's just more so cameo roles.
I'm gonna go ahead and do some ending shit. Nigga, break your ass up. Hell yeah. Beat that nigga ass. I feel like my heart in my ass. Work the shit. I will help you, boy. I don't know that nigga like that. Nigga, I just bought you Chick-fil-A. You gonna sit up there and watch me get my ass spit like, oh my.
I did like what they did with the Teen Titans in this universe. I think the Teen Titans were kind of fleshed out. They got a couple of movies that really had a really interesting team dynamic with Justice League versus Teen Titans and Teen Titans The Judas Contract, which is a much better or improved version of Deathstroke than we got instead of Batman, because bro was nerfed. Bro got like two-shotted by Batman, but in this one he actually like pulls up, like he's actually a formidable foe and very intimidating. And they took a lot of, you know, inspiration from the Judas Contract storyline, and, you know, solid movie. Some of the movies in this universe are a little mid though. You know, you have some of them that are bangers and some of them kind of and how they adapt certain comic storylines. Batman hush. And then, to no one's surprise, we all saw this coming, number one being the DCAU, DC Animated Universe, that, you know, based off of the Bruce Timm era, or whatever you want to call it, DC animated shows, including Batman the Animated Series, Batman Beyond, Justice League Unlimited, Static Shock, that whole universe. This is just peak DC. You know, it makes you wonder how something like the DCEU failed when they literally had a blueprint via the DCAU. Like, it was right there. All you had to do was just take notes, WB. I hope you're taking notes now, James Gunn, because this, when people said they want a good DC universe, this is exactly what they're talking about. Okay, the chefs over there at DC at the time were cooking, bro. Bruce Timm, Paul Dini with the animated series, Dwayne McDuffie with Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. Justice League Unlimited probably like the best DC show, period. You know, there's a lot of good DC shows, but that one right there, that one's special. Obviously birthed Kevin Conroy as Batman, and a lot of iconic roles like Susan Eisenberg as Wonder Woman, Tim Daly or George Newbern as Superman. Like, I feel like most fans' perception of the Justice League, like, that is like their ideal roster of what the Justice League should be in like any adaptation. Like, when I think Justice League, I think that's safe to say that's what most people think about, not whatever garbage we got in the DCEU. I mean, what can be said that hasn't been said already? I mean, all of these shows in this universe are just really well written. They're really good adaptations of this universe. You know, I rewatched Justice League and Justice League Unlimited not too long ago, and it's just like, damn, like they cooked. No house was burnt, gave us a 5-course meal when no one even asked for it. Like, it's crazy. And going back to the interconnectivity of it all, like, they would like reference events that would happen in like Superman the Animated Series when like Darkseid first came in, and be like, hey, remember when like Darkseid invaded back in like Superman the Animated Series, or when this happened in like that other season of Justice League. But it wouldn't be like required viewing. Like, if you didn't watch Superman the Animated Series, you could still watch Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, and it would kind of have like an overarching narrative with, you know, like some sort of like subplots that would go on. Like, you know, Cadmus was a really big thing in Justice League Unlimited. You know, that's later seasons of that, you know, with Amanda Waller and Lex Luthor. Yeah, like the Legion of Doom. And it just really gave a really good emphasis on even like the more smaller DC characters in terms of popularity, like Huntress, Black Canary, The Question. You saw characters in there like Metamorpho, Mr. Terrific, Hawkgirl. You know what I'm saying? Those characters are gonna make appearances in Superman Legacy in the DCU. So that just brings my hopes up that, you know, if when those characters get adapted in the big screen, it's gonna take some inspiration from the DCAU. And if that, bro, music to my ears if that's the case. Universe was just filled with mature characters with believable flaws and strengths, interconnected stories like what happened with Shia Rahal in their Justice League and how that carried over into Unlimited. The impeccable, I mean just untouchable voice acting. Like, this is just chef's kiss, top tier, timeless animation with, you know, the character designs and just overall animation design in general, and the genre defining characterizations of well-established popular characters from DC Comics. If you have not watched any of the primary shows, i.e., you know, Batman the Animated Series, and especially the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, you need to get on that right now. That is not a request, that is a demand. I will be on your, and yeah, I think that's a pretty fair list for, you know, some of the best DC universe put to screen. Injustice, I feel like might be kind of interchangeable looking back. You know, it might be worse, better than Young Justice, but all that matters is that DCAU, top tier. James Gunn, take notes.